Loren Eiseley wrote, "Men argue learnedly over whether life is chemical chance or anti-chance. But they seem to forget that the life in chemicals may be the greatest chance of all, the most mysterious and unexplainable property in matter." In other words, this incredible machine that you call your body, in which your life is encapsulated at this particular time, is a bundle of chemicals, as I'm sure you know. Now, did your life and all life on this earth begin to occur as the result of chance? Did it just happen as one time in the distant past, about 4 billion years ago, when two chemicals got together and were excited by a bolt of lightning? Was that the beginning of life? I doubt it. I seriously doubt it. Loren Eiseley continues, "Yet well over 100 years ago, Kierkegaard observed that maturity consists in the discovery that there comes a critical moment where everything is reversed, after which the point becomes to understand more and more that there's something which cannot be understood." Hope you followed that. As we grow in our giant intellects that try to understand everything, and this is an important part of our evolution, a critical point comes in understanding, in which you understand that most of what exists cannot be understood. That's paradoxical, isn't it? Now, the more you understand that you cannot understand most of what exists, then the more you can understand what exists. I know you followed that. Didn't follow that. A paradox is a seemingly contradictory statement that nonetheless may be true. And it is paradoxical that we cannot understand the essence of life from where we are at this moment. Now, to the intellect, this represents a very large problem, because the intellect believes that unless you can understand something, you cannot really experience that something. It isn't true at all. If you know that something exists, even though you do not understand it, you can begin to experience it. For example, most of the people that drove here this evening do not understand how your automobile operates, and yet that did not prevent you from arriving here before the class began. Is that correct? This universe cannot be understood, but it can be experienced. And the more you experience it, the more you will understand it. And the more you understand it, the more you will understand how little you understand. I think we have carried that far enough. But it is very important to know that everything that is happening is not happening by chance. There is no such thing as chance in the universe. Everything is caused, and therefore is effect. Everything that's occurring in your life has been caused, and more than you have experienced is trying to happen to you at this very moment. There are some magnificent events that are knocking on the door of your life saying, "Let me in. Let me happen to you." Now, if you can understand that this is trying to happen to you, you do not need to know how to have the experience. I think I said to you last week that serendipity is but another name for a higher and more divine order expressing in a person's life. There's a higher, personalized, almost magical order of things that some people experience exquisitely and other persons experience hardly at all. Which of these persons would you rather be? Order is the first law of the universe. And at any moment that you and I desire, we can decide that we wish this higher order to become our experience. Our scriptures are full of this understanding of this great wisdom. Listen to the 138th Psalm. The Lord will perfect that which concerneth me. Thy mercy, O Lord, endureth forever. And the Living Bible says it perhaps more succinctly in our language. The Lord will work out his plans for my life. For your loving kindness, Lord, continues forever. But then, just to make sure, the psalmist wrote, don't abandon me, for you made me. I know that you won't abandon me, but keep your eyes open anyhow, God. In his marvelous, exciting world of serendipity, Bach wrote in chapter number 9 that's entitled Never on Broadway, and I would probably subtitle that chapter, I Didn't Quite Make It. I didn't quite make it. Have you had the experience in your life of having your great dream not come true? You dreamed it, you dreamed it, you desired it, you desired it, and it seemed as though the more you dreamed it and desired it, the more separated you were from it. You almost made it. You were almost there on a few occasions, but never quite. Has that been the experience of any person here? Of course it has. Almost everyone is nodding their head. Well, on the day that Bach wrote this chapter, he said that he sat in his study and addressed this question to himself. What has been your unreached goal? A number of things came to his mind, but he had to confess that the major unrealized dream was his lifelong ambition to write and produce a play on Broadway. As a result of that dream, Marcus Bach wrote a number of plays that have been produced in a number of important theaters around this great land. You and I probably have never written a play and certainly have not had one produced. This man has had several of them in the mill over the years. As a matter of fact, he had one that was called Within These Walls that was scheduled for a New York production, even to the point where the wardrobe had been ordered and publicity was in the works. But at the last final moment, it was called off because it was considered to be too controversially religious. Close, but not quite, like your dreams, and perhaps like some of mine. Now, the day that Bach had this idea of wondering why his great dream had not come true, he decided to have a conference with the princes of Serendip. The fact that they had stepped out of their mortal bodies many hundreds of years before did not get in his way. He just, in his study, said, Princes of Serendip, enlighten me. And they did. They appeared, and they explained. They said, Marcus Bach, but for the fact that you had your eye on Broadway, you might never have done as well in these other plays. Just look at what you've accomplished, trying to get one play on Broadway. In hoping for Broadway, you did have major successes off Broadway. And he said, well, that was one way of looking at it, but it didn't make me feel very much better because I still wanted to play on Broadway. And then the princes made another serendipitous observation. They said to him, Marcus Bach, to realize Broadway as a goal, you must set a goal beyond Broadway, and you have not done that. You set your goal for Broadway. For example, they said, if you want to jump a given distance, you must have the ability to overjump. If you wish to jump a stream 6 feet wide, you better be prepared to jump 7 feet or you'll get your feet wet. You must be able to go beyond where you're trying to go. And most people set a goal, a specific goal, and try to go to it rather than beyond it. This probably is what has happened to you. The princes had some other observations to make, too. For example, it was said, if you wish to get something off the top shelf, it's not just enough to be able to reach the top shelf. You have to reach over it. don't you? Beyond it. One of the problems of setting a goal, an only goal, is that we tend to believe that there's nothing beyond it. It's the goal, the capital T, capital G goal. There's nothing beyond that goal. We know that. That's why we set it. And so we don't try to reach beyond it or through it. And that's why we don't achieve it. We don't overreach. And the princess told Mr. Bach that his obsession about Broadway had put a check on his creativity rather than a challenge. Every time that he sat down to write, he was trying to please Broadway, not his own creativity. Everything was for Broadway. And any time that a goal fills you with urgency or desperation, becomes a fixation, it will get in its own way. It's only when you approach your goals in a very relaxed manner, simply because you have the ability to go beyond those goals. Now, the princes were very generous with their axiomatic counsel also. And they said to him, if you cannot have what you want what you have. And soon you will have what you want. Does that sound like strange advice? It really isn't. I know that on a number of occasions I've said to you, would you like a better job? Then start liking the one you have, enjoying the one that you have. Enjoy the one that you have so much. Enjoy the one that you have as much as you would enjoy the one that you would like to have. And then in time you will have the one that you would like to have. But most people are afraid to enjoy the one they like, the one they presently have too much, because we believe that if we like what we have too much, we'll be stuck with it. You see, we won't overreach it. We won't reach beyond where we are, and we must reach beyond where we are if we're going to get where we wish to go. Now, how do you like this subtle piece of advice that the princes of Serendip gave Mr. Bach? Pray that you never get all that you pray for. Did that shock you? I thought it did. Pray that you never get all that you pray for. Oh, what a tragedy it would be if we got all that we prayed for. That would mean that we knew everything. It would also mean that we would settle down in our good, and that's what we've been trying to do all the time anyhow. And there would be no good beyond the good that we received. So pray that you never get all that you prayed for. And they continued. The goals that you find on the way to the goal you want may be more precious than the goal you seek. And it's true. You know that it's true. I know that it's true. A number of years ago, I set a goal for myself. I would move to Texas, earn enough money to retire at an early age, having very few responsibilities. I would be free to travel all over the world at my own whim, answering to no person's beck or call. That was my goal. Well, through a series of serendipitous events, I found myself in Michigan working 7 days a week with more responsibilities than I've ever had in my life, answering to many persons' call, and loving and enjoying every moment of it. Thank God that I did not get what I prayed for. I got something better than what I prayed for. I didn't know what to pray for, did I? And yet I had to pray and seek that goal so that serendipity could move me where I did not know that I needed to be. Is it possible that our eternal unrest is the quality that makes us inventive, progressive, explorative? Of course it is. Your spirit cannot rest. Your spirit, which is the essence of God, God's own perfection, can never settle down into any particular frame of reference, even its own frame of reference in any given moment. So, suppose there was an ultimate goal for you. That's the only tragedy that I can think of, that you or I could conceive of a goal that would be the end place for us. There's no such thing. Now, it's interesting that I do more traveling at this period of my life by necessity than I probably ever would have done by a whim if my goal had been achieved. As a matter of fact, I just returned to my office this morning from New York, and I received 4 long-distance telephone calls today asking me to come and speak or give seminars in distant parts of this country, all of which I lovingly declined, simply because I am already committed to travel to more places than I can get to give talks and conduct seminars. Now that's some kind of a paradox, isn't it? That which I formerly sought has come into my life, but in a much better form than I had sought it. Now, Bach has written numerous plays, as I mentioned to you, for Broadway, none of which have ever played Broadway. But I doubt if Marcus Bach would be the Marcus Bach that we know if he had not written those plays for Broadway. But the most important play that he has created is his own life. You see, his life is a living, serendipitous play that never ceases being written. And so is your life. You are in the process of creating a drama that has chapter after chapter as yet not developed. The manner in which you live this day will be the determining factor in what happens in chapters of your play that have not yet been put on paper. It's interesting that while in New York, on my way to see a Broadway play Monday evening, I had a very serendipitous experience. As a matter of fact, in New York this week, I had a series of serendipitous events occur. Let me back up, and I think I'll tell you the story in its proper sequence. My business in New York this week was twofold, 2 separate purposes with no seeming connection. Now, please hold that in mind. No connection between these 2 major reasons why I went to New York. The first reason I went was to meet with Dr. Douglas Lawson of Douglas Lawson and Associates. Dr. Lawson is a Methodist minister with his Ph.D. He is no longer a pulpit minister, but for a number of years now has been one of the most successful fundraisers in America and has been very much involved with the Robert Schuller program. As a matter of fact, that's how he came to our attention. He was recommended by Dr. Schuller to us to help us with the fundraising for our new church. A wonderful person, one of the most charismatic men that I've ever met in my life. I believe that he would be comfortable with any human being anywhere upon this earth, and they would be comfortable with him. So I was there to meet with him with Lenore Tucci, who is seated here on the front row. Lenore, as you are probably aware, is one of the very valuable employees of this church. She is really my executive assistant, and it was necessary that she meet and become involved with the Lawsons' New York staff, and so I took her there. Now, the second reason for me being in New York was to meet an old and dear friend of mine from Dallas, Delois Coker. Again, one of the most remarkable women that I have ever met. Truly, truly a divine being. Lovely, a former beauty queen, very successful in her life, in her business life. At this time in her life, Delois is creating a group of alcohol and drug rehabilitation centers in Texas, but rehabilitation centers that work with the latest techniques and that are especially family-oriented. Now, some months ago, as Delois set out to achieve her goal, and incidentally, she is not a recovering alcoholic, but a person who is very interested and desirous of helping others. But she discovered that the insurance companies of America have not treated the alcoholic and their families fairly, and that the insurance companies are decades behind in bringing their coverage up to standard based on what is now general knowledge about the disease of alcoholism. So Delois decided to do something about it. A very serendipitous event The first step for her was to approach the insurance commissioner of the state of Texas. And she got this man, a very fine religious person, to listen to Dr. Joseph Persh. Now here's another name that I'm sure you've been familiar with. Dr. Persh is the recently retired naval captain who founded and headed the Navy Alcohol and Drug Rehabilitation Program in Long Beach, California. You will recall that Dr. Persh was the psychiatrist who successfully treated Betty Ford, Billy Carter, several senators, and other dignitaries to help them recover from alcoholism. The insurance commissioner of Texas, a man by the name of Bill Daves, listened to Dr. Persh. And his thinking was changed so dramatically that he headed up a task force of knowledgeable people, and then this Monday afternoon just passed in New York, that task force made its recommendations known to a group of top executives of America's leading insurance companies. All of this came about as a result of our friend Lois Coker's sudden awareness early this year that this problem existed. Monday afternoon, Joseph Persh was to make a presentation, and so was his star patient and friend, Mrs. Betty Ford, the former First Lady, who incidentally has been making a marvelous contribution since her recovery from alcoholism. And Dolores had invited me to attend that session, so I was there for this double purpose. Now, since this was Lenore Tucci's first trip to New York, I'm backing up a bit because I want you to get the full scenario. I felt exactly the way that you would have felt taking her to New York. I wanted her to have the full shot, the full treatment. New York. It's a very exciting place. And those of you who have been there know that there's no place on earth like New York. I wanted Lenore to experience serendipity there. By serendipity, I mean having each event that occurred be connected to other things, so that the total experience would be one in which she would be aware that there was this invisible power working in and through her and us in these matters of importance. And I asked for this in my own mind. As we landed and got our bags and caught a cab, I heard myself in my mind say, now let this cab driver be one of those New York cabbies that is so typical so that she'll get that experience. As it turned out, our first cab driver was not that way at all. He was just an ordinary cab driver, not a New York cab driver. But I had asked for that experience. We had dinner with Lois Coker and Dr. Joseph Persh at the Plaza, one of New York's elegant old hotels. Marvelous place. Beautiful place. Monday morning, before meeting with Doug Lawson and his group, Lenore and I paused and had a mastermind meeting. And as we were leaving New York yesterday, I asked her, what was the most significant experience that you had while you were here? And she said the mastermind meeting that we shared yesterday, and it was mine too. Our meeting with the Lawson group on Monday was very rewarding. Midway in the morning, Dr. Lawson asked his secretary to make reservations for lunch at the Waldorf Astoria, the very hotel that the Congress of Insurance Executives was having their meeting, and the very place that I was going to have my meeting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So here we were, getting closer and closer to this dynamic. I told Doug that Lenore and I were attending a very important meeting at 2 o'clock, and arrangements were made for lunch to be finished by 1:30. But what followed in our conversation on Monday morning was one of the most exciting discussions that I've had in a long time. First, Dr. Lawson, after discovering that Bill Daves would be the chairman of that group, said, he's one of my oldest and very best friends. Bill Daves is the insurance commissioner from the state of Texas. Well, secondly, Dr. Lawson knows a woman in California who controls a substantial trust that is designated to help alcoholics and their families recover. Are you hearing what I'm saying? And she's been looking for someone with whom she can share, that she can use these considerable monies. And there's no more perfect person on this earth than Delois Coker. So suddenly these two seemingly unconnected responsibilities are getting closer and closer together. At lunch at the Waldorf, Jackie Kennedy Onassis strolled in to join us. Well, not really at our table. She sat 3 tables away. Lenore made an extra trip to the ladies' room just so that she could walk by the table to get a good look. At 1:30 or 20 minutes of 2, lunch was over, and we lost our way going to the ballroom in the Waldorf Astoria, which meant that we had not lost our way at all, because in losing our way and fumbling and stumbling up and down a couple of flights of stairs, we came out at precisely the right point and the right moment. If we had been 2 minutes earlier, it would have been too soon, and 2 minutes later, and we would have missed the connection for Dr. Lawson to be introduced to Delois Coker and to greet his old friend Bill Daves. And here were these two people coming together. Now, there are far more ramifications here than time will permit me to describe to you. But I want you to know that something very powerful and very beautiful is taking place. Something wonderfully serendipitous is coming from all of this, and I can hardly wait for the final chapters to develop. But this much I can tell you, a great good is unfolding for a large number of people. Oh, yes, about Broadway. I almost left that out. I had asked, remember, for Lenore to have the experience of a New York cabbie. Well, I want you to know that after dinner on Monday evening in Upper Manhattan, we caught a cab to go down to drive down Broadway, the thoroughfare, to Broadway, the place. And as we were about to enter this cab, Lenore looked at it and said, with some apprehension, "This cab is all bent up." Less than 1 minute later, we found out why that cab was all bent up. Lenore Tucci had one of the most exciting rides that any person in New York has ever had. So many things happened that an hour and a half would not permit me to tell you of the different connections that were made. But coming back yesterday from New York, the plane was almost filled, and Lenore sat in the center seat. I sat in the aisle, and a very charismatic man came and took the window seat. And in a short time, Lenore was talking to him, and they were very much engrossed. It turned out that he is the regional sales manager for one of the 3 major television networks, and is the sales manager for the #1 television station here in town. The connection that was made just has something to do with the direction that we're taking in our outreach here in this church. Do you think that was by chance? Serendipitous? I never cease to marvel at the infinite timing involved in these seeming coincidences. Do you? The split-second timing. Now, Marcus Bach, in chapter 12 of his great book, said the chapter was entitled, "Why Did What Happened Happen?" Why did it happen? And the princes had developed the habit of stopping at the end of the day to ask themselves with excitement, why did what happened happen? They were very much interested in examining the things that occurred to them in the course of the day, because they had come to know that nothing happened by chance. It was always by choice. Everything was serendipitous. Everything was happening to them because they lived exciting lives, and they believed that we are on this stage of life in which these things are caused to occur. And they wanted to know why, because that added more excitement to their lives. And they came up with 3 different answers to why what happened happened. The first answer was this: what happened happened either for your growth or for your guidance. I can say this to you right now. The things that are happening to you are happening either for your growth or for your guidance. Or they came up with another reason. Because you do the happening to yourself by conscious or unconscious forces within you. You have made what happened happen. It had no choice but to happen. Why do you think I told you the story about the New York cabbie? I made that experience happen to Lenore. Did I not? In my mind, when I wished her that experience, when I visualized it, when I asked the power of serendip to cause such a thing to happen, it happened. Do not question, my friend, the capacity of your mind to cause things to happen, because you're always making things happen, consciously or unconsciously. The princes also had a third explanation. What happened, happened not for your benefit, but for the benefit and profit of someone else. One thing is certain about most of us. Up to now, when anything happened to us, we have been inclined to think only in terms of what it meant to us. Why did this happen to a nice person like me? Are you aware, or would you consider the fact that now, where you are in your growth, a great deal of what's happening to you is not happening to you at all. It's happening to you because of what can therefore happen to someone else. It's happening so that someone else can benefit and profit. You are becoming the catalyst for events to take place in the lives of other people. You are an influencer, a factor in the life of other people. But this has not entered your mind until now. We've always looked immediately at ourselves in a very selfish way. Let's don't do this anymore, because you are a prince of serendip, and you have reached the point in your life when your experiences are not yours and yours alone. They never were. And now they certainly are not. Bach, in his book, brought out just a beautiful example when he told of a purportedly true story that I first heard when I must have been 4 or 5 years of age. I can still recall the picture of Androcles and the lion. Remember that story where Androcles withdrew the thorn from the lion's paw? And remember that Androcles was a slave that had escaped his taskmaster. He had run to find his freedom and was hiding in a cave, and suddenly he heard a noise and was approached by a lion, and he thought, well, this is worse than what I have escaped from. And he cowered to the back part of the cage and thought that surely he would be eaten up, and the lion approached him and growled a bit and then stuck forth his paw that was swollen, and Androcles withdrew the thorn very carefully. And the lion smiled and licked his face and retreated, and Androcles thought, I'm glad that's over. Certainly he made no more of it. Well, 3 years later in Rome, Androcles had become a Christian, had been seized by Roman persecutors, ordered to renounce his faith, which he did not. They said, well, we'll fix you. They threw him into the lions. Guess which lion? That one. Now that is supposedly a true story. Stranger things have happened. And when the lion saw Androcles, he came out, and instead of eating him up, he licked his face. And Androcles was not put to death, but was released because the people there thought that he was a person of magic. And he was. But so are you. You, each one of us here. Now, how many lions have you befriended? How many thorns have you withdrawn, plucked from swollen paws? Are you aware that someday you will be thrown into an arena? You will. And I promise you that if you've plucked enough thorns, you'll be saved in the arena. What you do now will become a very serendipitous event at that particular time. Oh, it will, believe me, it will. Remember what the princes of Serendip have said. The things that have happened to you this very day, this week, this month, this year, all of your life, have happened either for your growth or for your guidance, or because you drew what happened to you by conscious or unconscious forces, or it had happened not for your benefit, but for the benefit of someone else. And of course, that someone else may be you, if you play your cards right. One of the stories of the princes that really captured my imagination was the story of the secret whisper. The secret whisper. It seems that when an individual would come to the princes with problems and matters of personal concern, the princes would listen patiently. They would carefully weigh what they heard, sit quietly for a few moments, look very wise, and then quietly whisper a few words into their client's ear. And this practice worked such miracles and had such a phenomenal effect that it got to be a much sought-after therapy. People came from great distances to approach the princes, tell them their problems, and they would listen intently, very carefully, looking that person straight in the eye with their full attention. And then they would pause and look very wise and whisper something into the person's ear. Now, gradually, as the princes moved on to other places, the mystery was cleared up. Every once in a while, a person who had had this experience would divulge what they had been told, although in each instance the princes said, "You must never, ever tell anyone what I tell you." The secret whisper consisted of two simple words: surprise yourself. Surprise yourself. That didn't shock you? Well, listen to Bach's story of how he discovered the effectiveness of these two words. It seems that he was in the mountains of British Columbia carrying a heavy camper's pack, had come to the end of the day, it was getting late, and he came to a place on the trail in which there was a large log about 10 inches wide at the top, covering a ravine very deep, too deep to ascend and climb up the other side. And Bach was stopped. It was too late to go back. It was too far for his journey. He sat down on a rock several feet away, and he looked at this precarious passage. He thought and he thought and he thought, what should he do? He knew he was not going back, but he knew that he could not go forward, because although on other occasions he had seen people nimbly cross that log, he was afraid of heights. He was scared. He heard his mind saying such things to him as, do the thing you fear. Now, the reason his mind said this to him was because he had said this to many other people, do the thing you fear. He told people, go do the thing that you fear. And they would do the thing that they feared. And so as he sat there looking at this log that he was afraid to cross, his mind said, yes, but they never had to walk a log like this. Another thought came to his mind that said, it's all in your mind. And his mind said, well, I think it's all in my equilibrium. Not my mind. It's my equilibrium that is my problem at this moment. And as he sat there trying to talk himself out of what he knew he was going to do, he remembered the princes of Serendip. And he called upon the princes of Serendip, and they came to him and whispered in his ear. Guess what they said? Surprise yourself. And he said instantly, he took a giant step forward. Something deep within him began to stir and throb and lifted him to his feet, and he stepped poised and proud to the edge of that log, still saying, surprise yourself. And he really surprised himself. Guess what he did? He crossed that log. Great surprise. But the thing that was so surprising was that the moment that he started doing it, he knew that he could do it, he knew that he would do it. And he was carried across with a marvelous energy, capacity that had not been his a moment ago until he said, surprise yourself. And he's been saying those words to himself ever since. The secret whisper, the giant persuader, a catalyst in the mind. Something begins to happen. If you are in the habit of surprising yourself with fear, you can rest assured that you also have the ability to surprise yourself with courage and faith. You do. And at any moment, you can say, surprise yourself. I'll bet you that in a group this large, there's surely someone here that's got a log to cross. A 20-foot ravine. And you can't go back. There's no place to go. And besides, you're too tired. You've walked that trail. You don't want to walk back there. And you can't go up, and you can't go down, and you can't go around. Is that true? Do you know what the princes of Serendip are saying to you, whispering into your ear right now, and no one else can hear it? Can you guess what? Surprise yourself. Surprise yourself. Go forward. Do what you think you cannot do, except you know that you can do it. You can do it. I'll bet you there's someone here that is in the darndest mess. You really don't want anyone to know about it, but you're in it, right up to here, right? I have some exciting news for you. If you got yourself into this mess, you have the power to get yourself out of it. Now surprise yourself and get out of it. Surprise yourself. The quickness of the process of self-discovery depends on the intensity of your will to surprise yourself. Are you willing to really surprise yourself? All of my life I've been surprising myself. The first part of my life, some of the surprises that I gave myself, I got myself into it and I surprised myself. I got myself out. Alfred Lord Tennyson wrote, the first act, this earth, a stage so gloomed with woe you all but sicken at the shifting scenes, and yet be patient. Our playwright may show in some fifth act what this wild drama means. I can tell you something, friend. You don't have to wait till the fifth act. You don't have to wait until tomorrow morning. You can find out what this wild drama means the moment that you go into action, the moment that you're willing to believe that this is a serendipitous universe, especially the part of it that we occupy, and that things are happening to you that are beyond your capacity to understand. Don't try to understand them. Just go and experience them. Believe that the most important things that are going to happen to you are not the things that you're going to set out to do, but the things that will occur because you go into action. Cross that log. I promise you that on the other side, you will find the solution to some great problem. Because that's the way it really is.
This concludes the lesson on Side A. Now, please fast forward to the end and turn the cassette over for the continuation of The Secret Power of Serendipity.